Hey, good evening, everyone. Welcome to this Spaces, Money Spaces with Kalu. My name is Kalu Aja, and welcome. So today, I just want to speak with the guys from Fortrese, and they're just joining in here. Once they join, I'll just introduce them, and then we can have a conversation, and we all can join in. But let me just give you guys some background, what's going on, right? So a while back, we ran a Spaces, and the title of the Spaces was about collective schemes, Esusu. We tried to see, the story was really about how the Indians essentially went into America and used their collective power, their collective credit power, savings power to essentially establish a foothold in America. And if you know the story, right, Indian families were driven away from Uganda, and they all went to Canada and the US. I know when they came to the US, they were given like $10,000 or something like that. And what they ended up doing was that they would form, say, about 6 families or 7 families would come together. Then they would go buy a gas station or a motel. And they all buy that motel. They all work in that motel, right? And essentially, what they then do is that they are then able to offset each other. So one person from that group of 7 will then be given a loan from the group to go buy a new motel, right? And the other person will also be given a loan to go buy a motel as well. So you have 7 of them buying a motel once they come in. And every year, one after the other, they all go out using the credit, using the equity already established from owning that one filling station or motel to then buy other motels, right? And essentially, that's how they built, got their foothold. If you go to America, most of the gas stations or the motels, you see one name, Patel. It's Patel. And I mean, the numbers are scary. Scary good in terms of how well they have done. Simply leveraging their community, right? Not loans, just leveraging their community. So you see Patel hotels, gas stations, U-Haul. It's all the same sort of setup, right? It's not one person, but that group that is that name, and that's essentially how they set up. So we talked about that, right? We brought in a South African, we brought in an Indian, and we talked about all that. And then we basically tried to see how we could, like we all do Esusu in Nigeria. So we do Esusu, you're in your office, you all contribute, and then you get that bulk cash that you can use to do something meaningful, right? But can we take that further? Can we make Esusu more institutionalized, right? So that it's more or less, it takes away from these friends and family, but it's more of giving you a way of getting low cost funding. It's from that discussion that I met these guys from Fortrese, John and Limal. And we've been talking, right? They've been building something like this in the back end, right? And I do like the fact that they are both BIPOC, so that's like both Black, and they try to do empowerment using this, i.e., making Esusu, or in their own case, collective schemes, giving it to the underserved, right? So that we can then start to grow that economic power, more or less. So I just said, guys, let me have you guys come and talk about what you're doing, right? And then let's understand and let's see if we can tap. And I think it's perfect. It's perfect what they're doing. I like it. So I've got John and Limal here. I'm just going to ask them to introduce themselves, and then I will just ask a few questions so we can listen in. And after maybe 30 minutes, I'll let you guys ask questions and all that. So just like we do on normal spaces. So John, Limal, you guys say hi.
Hey, Kalu, how you doing?
I am doing very well. Yeah, doing very well.
Good. Thanks for having us. John, you there? Can you hear us?
Yeah, here I am. Hi, Kalu. Hi, everyone.
Hello.
Thanks for having us on, Kalu. Really
Great. So John, where you guys based? Even though I'm just going to ask you questions so everyone can follow, right? Where you guys based? What are you guys doing? Let's talk about your personal side before we get into Fortrese.
Yeah, sure. So my name is Lamar Rendell Mills. Just a little brief backdrop. I'm an entrepreneur, artist, author. I'm based currently between the UK and the Caribbean, specifically St. Kitts and Nevis, which is a small island in the Eastern Caribbean. And Switzerland, where John will touch base where he's based currently. And just all around entrepreneur and trying to better the community in ways that we actually need. And with Fortrese, which we'll get into, is obviously a financial services app. And that's really what we're here to chat about. So, all things entrepreneurial and creative. That's my part.
Excellent. Good job, right? Good job. What about you, John? Where are you from? Where are you based? What you're doing?
So for me, hi everyone, my name's John Mendy. I am from the UK as well. My background, both my parents are African, but I grew up in the UK, studied in the UK. I have a legal background in law, but I've been working in the financial services sector in Switzerland for over a decade now. And a bit like Lamal, touch base, currently based in Switzerland as well, but have a very, very big interest in terms of some of the struggles that obviously people in our community are going through.
Exactly.
So hence, this opportunity is really great for us to see how we can showcase our ideas and how we actually want to help bring about some changes as well.
Excellent. Well said, John. I mean, I've teed it up a bit, right? I've teed up what the Indians did in America, but I brought it a bit specific to what we do in Nigeria. I mean, also in Africa, we do a Esusu or a job where you have a group of folks, maybe 10 folks or 5 friends will come together, contribute money, and then everyone takes the bulk sum. You know, it's not investing per se. It's like you're trying to get the money together so you can do something quote unquote meaningful with a bonus in a large lump sum. So let's use that as to dovetail into Fortrese. What is Fortrese? What are you guys building, and why are you guys building it?
Yeah. So again, as we said briefly before, Fortrese is really designed to solve some problems. One of the ideas that came up, this was probably back in 2019. I had recently returned back from living in the Middle East. I forgot to mention I also have a wealth management, financial services background. But after coming back to my community in the UK, I started to see certain things. And these things were really based around not having access to capital or finance, or people just not progressing from an economic standpoint. So when John and I really, put heads together and really was like, hey, look, what can we actually do with our background in finance to try and solve some of these problems? Because we hear so many conversations about and the challenges in the Black community globally, right?
Yeah.
Whether it's the States, Europe, Africa, UK, Canada, whatever. But sometimes where we struggle is execution on solving that actual problem. And most of these challenges usually result around finances, lack of education around finance and economics as a whole. And we figured, hey, we want to try and do our part and use a system that essentially has got a bad rep. So we was inspired by things like Esusu, Partner Hand, what they call the Caribbean. And we wanted to really just build on top of that to really, one, restore a method that has actually helped a lot of us globally get ahead, right? But the one thing that has been damaged over time is this whole trust thing, which we'll get into a little bit.
Yeah.
So these are some of the backdrops as to why we wanted to do that.
So specifically, Fortrese is an app. What does it do?
Yeah, so essentially Fortrese is a savings platform at present. It allows people to, one, enhance their financial literacy. So we have a quiz functionality within the app. At the moment, in this current beta version of it, people can actually onboard, go through our KYC, and be on the waiting list. But essentially what Fortrese does is allows people to save, as you would do with a Esusu or Partner Hand. But we have a more automated 100% success rate system, which we've been working on for the past 18 months. So it allows people to save money in a group and get paid out once every calendar year.
Okay. So so if I could, so what is happening is essentially Fortrese is going to do quota. Let's just use the term Esusu, even if it is not right. It's a savings app where I can come into Fortrese and I can save or join an Esusu, should we say, group. And the trust is you guys take away that element of lack of trust by being I pay to you and then you manage and you pay back to me.
Exactly. So with the KYC that we have, which was probably the most important algorithmic step that we developed, that actually qualifies the individuals to ensure the safety of the group. So what we didn't want in the beginning was, there's different people using it, not really having the affordability and just the correct financial profile, because we have to protect everyone within the group. So our algorithm is quite intuitive, where we've, as I said, had 100% success rate in the past 18 months with our payouts, because the people who are using it are qualified and they're in a position to do so. So that's I would say, our selling point.
So I think just to add on to that as well, I think if you think about it, like one of the biggest risks, the whole point with if you just go back to Susu, one of the biggest concerns, or one of the biggest things that people who use it tend to have, especially because they tend to use it amongst family and friends.
Yeah.
But even so, you always hear about cases where people start chasing their friends or families because obviously people aren't paying on time, or people just are refusing to pay. So obviously, from our standpoint, one of the things that we've done, obviously leveraging our experience working in the financial services sector, we just developed like a KYC system taking into consideration different aspects of people's personal and financial lives, and then setting that up as part of the onboarding process. So before anybody can actually join a group or do anything, there is a KYC onboarding process, which is quite thorough. And then from there, we can actually, we have like within the KYC process, we actually have like a risk management algorithm, which then determines someone's ability to actually be part of a group, and if they can actually afford the amount that they actually want to take, the amount that they want to pay into the group as well. So, and from that, I think we've been going for over 18 months now, and absolutely 100% success rate. Right. No failure, payout every month without fail.
So it's not like an all-comers affair. You have to like do a KYC, because I downloaded the app, right? And it asked me to fill a lot of questions and all that. So that's the algo that will basically find out if I'm qualified to join this quote-unquote scheme, right?
Correct. That's one part of it. But you also have to recognize as well, since this is a fintech that we have, there's also the regulatory aspect as well. Yeah. So from that standpoint, there's many sort of hurdles that we have to go through before you get fully regulated, once we get to that point. And that itself, obviously, there's like capital adequacy requirements, other stuff in the background, which actually gives us a much more stronger stance, being able to make sure that whoever joins the group will still get payout regardless. So the risk, we act as a middleman in between, and then we handle and manage all the risks for all joiners.
Great. So essentially, you guys are in both places. You are at the entry. To come in, I have to go past you guys. I have to fill the KYC. You guys check me out, make sure I qualify more or less to join the community. When I'm in the community, I then give you guys my money. All right. I give you guys the money. You guys collect the money from everyone, and then you guys make sure that I get paid.
Correct. Okay. And just touching on that, the Fortrese system at the moment, the savings platform, is automated. So just like how you would with any direct debit, we take an automated payment once a month. Then once those funds have been collected, then they get distributed to that particular individual of that group at the end of the calendar month. So it's a very seamless process that was really created. Oh,
got you. And just to be clear, right, I put this point out there. I just want to make sure this is not an investment scheme. There is no return on investment. This is pure, like most of the folks listening here are Nigerians. This is pure Esusu. So you put in 100 pounds, you get, if there are 10 in the group, you get your 1,000 pounds more or less. There's no ROI, there's no percentage, all that kind of stuff. It's just to turn Esusu into something that you can, if I want to save, for instance, for Christmas, I could go into Fortrese, right? And I could put in my 100 pounds, and I can, how does it work? Do I choose the month? How does it work? Walk me through, if I want to save for Valentine, and this is Valentine next year, that's going to be February. So we're about June. Can I select February? How does it work?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So what we've done is, as I said, some Susus, as you probably know, people operate in different schedules. So some are doing maybe weekly, fortnightly, monthly, quarterly. There's different styles that people do. Our model, our financial model, is based on January to December. So in the app, once a user actually goes through the KYC process, at the end, they'll be able to select, hey, I would like, ideally, my payment in February that I just said. Now, once the algorithm has actually checked that individual's profile. It's not guaranteed that they will get that month because it is based on an algorithm. So it could be, for example, March based on their profile and the rest of the people in that selected group. So you can choose, but it's not guaranteed that you will get that month.
Okay. So this is more like I can save and I can get the money back. Normal Esusu, but the trust element is taken care of. I know you guys are going to take care of that. That's essentially what it is. So if I want, if I want to, if I'm saving money in my emergency, it's just Esusu, but you guys are taking care of it. That's fantastic. How do I get paid?
Just quick one. Before the answer, I just wanted to add one thing as well. On what Lemar was saying, because you said you gave an example where you're saying you get £100.
Yeah.
And if you started in January, you wanted to get paid, you get like £1,200 or $1,200 in December. As part of the algorithm, I think it's quite important. One of the things that differentiates us from a lot of like models that are out there is that it's not just like a savings scheme. It's both like it's like people who are, let's say it's a borrowing and savings scheme. So people who are actually going between from January to June, because they get in the privilege of getting the money up front, they actually pay for that privilege. So let's say for you in the example you've given me, you're looking to get paid in December. You actually end up, based on our algorithm and what we've done, you can actually end up paying less. Like let's say instead of paying $100 a month, you probably end up paying, let's say, like $90, for example.
Oh.
And then you still get in December that amount of $1,200. So now you're actually making money in terms of the amount that you've actually paying or that you're investing in. Does that make sense?
So if I want to take what if I want to take it in February, like far into the future, I pay less, more or less. Is that it? But I get the full $100.
Correct. Yes. This is we're doing this as a way of basically compensating people for the option of going really late in the group, and for the people who really need the money up front early, they pay like a premium for that, which is then distributed to people who are going later in the group and seeing the payment at the end of like the year, for example. Because I think one thing that I'm sure a lot of your audience are quite familiar with Esusu. One of the things that a lot of people are concerned about is, all right, if I'm in a group and I pay an amount, I'm the last one to go. I'm actually taking a risk because of that. Because when someone gets paid, they can just stop paying at any time. So now for that risk, for people going really late, on top of the fact that obviously we have a strong risk management algorithm, there's other regulatory stuff in the background. People are now getting compensated for that risk as well of going really late in of receiving their payment later than the other people.
And that's a good point to make, because people ask me about Esusu or savings, I always tell them, try to take first or second. Because if you take first or second, then time value of money works in your favor. But you guys have actually solved that problem by saying, if you are taking later on, you don't get the same, you get more. If I'm taking earlier on, I pay. So you've solved that problem, which this is why I like the Fortrese per se. Like, okay, it's very intuitive. It's saying, if I keep my money there, then I quote unquote get more because I pay in less at the end. And guys, just in case you want to check it out, I just shared the link to Fortrese on Twitter. You can just check it out on Twitter. Can you guys also give us your email, John? So just in case one will just check you guys out while we continue. But I've shared the tweet. You can just use that link to. It has to be on an iPhone, guys. Sorry about that. It has to be on an iPhone to get it. And sorry, that's But guys, let's talk about. So we talked about empowerment, right? And this is why I like this is big for me. There are a number of polls I can quote here that show the least savings in the US that I know of is done by African Americans, then Latinos, then the whites have the highest number of. Look at the demographics of savings. Savings, assets, the same format where you have the Caucasians doing very well, the Latinos, then African Americans, and of course, we are in that group coming last. Is it because we don't know how to save, or is it that we spend too much, or what do you think is going on, and how does this address what you think is going on?
Yes, it's a very good question. And again, that's one of the ones that has, I would say, demystified a lot of us globally. Now, in 2020, just so you guys know, as I said, we've been doing the beta for the past 18 months, but we actually founded the company in April 2020, but we had the preliminary work in back end of 2019. And what we did is we did a lot of like surveys. So it was actually asking people, questions to find out some of the clues as to fixing some of these problems. So I wanted to share some of these, and I've actually published these some of these data points in my book, The Black Algorithm: Solving Problems in the Black Community. It's a quick plug for you there. But it's interesting because it says 50% of Black females that we spoke to had less than £500 in savings in comparison to 5% of Black males. Now, the one that is probably the most standout data point for me was that 85% of Black females talk to their children about budgeting and savings in comparison to 64% for Black males. But when you look at the correlation between how many mothers, for example, speak to their children about saving and budgeting, they only 50% of them only had £500 or less. Then when you actually look at data going further in terms of social housing, in the UK specifically, again, that number for the Black population in the UK is over 47%. So you start to really connect the dots to see how people are struggling to actually get in position first. And I've really coined it that with a lot of Black folks globally, it's hard to really get financially literate because you're already kind of starting behind the curve.
Yeah.
So when you have, for example, like single mothers who are, just doing their best to move forward with their children, like it's difficult for them to allocate the time to study and get all of this information because they're just trying to, stay on top of things.
That's true.
So I think it's really down to an education thing. This is male and female, not just female. But when we actually saw those data points, we realized that 84% are actually talking about savings and stuff like that, but some have not really even heard of fintech, and 50%, which is a big number, had less than £500 or around $650 in savings. So I think it's an education thing. John, what would you say?
No, I agree with it. I think also just when Kalu started, he talked a little bit about the different communities, the Indian communities, the Asian communities.
Yeah.
And the fact that this is a system that they use very well to this day, to be able to start getting into the property ladder, to start businesses, just save amongst themselves. I think even our own community, I'll even give a good example. I think we call it like the Windrush generation, which is when people from the Caribbean, when they first moved to the UK. This is to be able to, because obviously historically we know there's a lot of discrimination. When they first came, being able to get access to like loans, anything like that was really, really tough. So one thing they ended up doing was obviously using from this, like the partner hand, the Esusu system, to start borrowing and saving amongst each other to then, for each person, they'll start get a home, get a property, or start business. But unfortunately, the practice has died. It's no longer, it's used, but it's only more of like just between family and friends. So it's not as popular because obviously the system's a bit more open. But the problem still exists to this day, in which obviously people aren't really saving much. I think the beautiful thing about our system, and the good thing about Esusu is the fact that it instills the discipline. Like there's a collective discipline, because if you're doing it amongst family and friends, or you're doing it amongst other people, there's an obligation to the group, in which obviously you have to pay, because it's not just yourself. You're not just paying, and then if you feel like it the next month you're not. You actually are obligated to the group to keep on contributing regularly. This kind of helps us alleviate some of the problems obviously we see in the community in terms of people not really saving much, not really having a rainy day fund at all, which is the biggest thing in terms of once you have that rainy day fund, it opens up a lot of doors to being able to obviously start a business or just solve issues when they come.
Yeah, and what's the minimum to get in? Who sets the minimum to save? Is it the app? What's the minimum to save?
Yeah, so it's a good question again. So at the moment, because for the past 18 months, we do have some, regulatory requirements that we have to fall on the line. We actually spoke with the FCA when we started. So, it was kind of advised that we can do it in a small manner, but we cannot then start taking on, thousands of people because there is a lot of adequacy requirements. There's a lot of capital requirements that we have to adhere to. So we actually capped it at a particular amount, less than £100 at the moment.
Gotcha.
But our model is based on average of £150 a month, right? So the model is scalable. But again, at the moment, we've had to cap it under the £100 just to manage the risk accordingly. But again, as I said, we feel very confident at this moment in time because, we have some great data points. Again, just want to share. Our first try failed payment, FTFP, rate was never higher than 16% of total payments. And the users usually paid first time.
What does that mean? What does that mean right now? What does that mean?
Yeah, that's a good question. So essentially, this is the first time that our software has actually tried to charge the customer to take the monthly payment from their bank account. So that was never usually 16% of all the payments that we are actually trying to get each month. And when we started, we got asked this question actually by an investor, and they asked what would be the potential default rate. And we had a model for 20%. And even in the beta for the past 18 months, it's not even been close. Kind of close, but it's underneath that. So we also feel confident that at scale that we can manage that 16% going forward. So again, most of the customers, even if they didn't have the money at the time, it was usually because sometimes how they manage their money, they move it from a pot or a different account, or sometimes their card details might have changed. It was very small errors. Yeah. On the second try, or after one email, they paid straight away. And that's why we've had this 100% success rate. So we're not going to sit here and say, every single month it's gone through automatically, because you're going to have some issues, but those numbers are accounted for.
Okay. And just to be clear, who pays? Who has the guarantee? If I start the scheme, I'm not worried about Mr. A, Mr. B. It's Fortrese that pays me.
Correct. Yes.
Okay.
And we actually make the distribute payments and take liability for any issues. And one thing, what you said earlier, or what John was saying, usually it has been people that people know, but our system and our risk management algorithm allows that to be anybody in the world essentially, that can use this system, and based on their financial profile, the algorithm will tell the individual if they've been accepted or not. And we have some ideas and some things in place that we'll roll out later that will kind of help people who are maybe struggling or want to do something like that, but they're just not in the financial position. And things like the beta group that we've been testing, it's such a low amount that we know this would be a nice roadmap to say from $50 to $150 over the course of, say, 3 to 6 months. So we're not trying to exclude people. Hence why we've got the financial literacy quiz within the app, so people can test their knowledge. And I do, really insist anyone who's listening, go on the app, check it out, and actually test yourself, see what kind of questions you know. Because I've had people that I know who thought there was, wizards, let's say, at finance, to say, hey, I actually didn't know as much as I thought I did. Yeah. We made some of the questions intentionally difficult. So
yeah.
Just to add on that, I think you touched upon a very good point, Callaway. Just to the relationship is between whoever's joining and us Fortrese. Right? The good comparison, although we're not a bank at all, is just to think of it like we're a bank. Once you put your money in the bank account, although the bank might use some of the funds obviously to borrow other people or to do investments, etc., your relationship is still with them. So if anything happens, you come to them, and obviously you get your money back. Even if whatever happens, if another customer of theirs loses money or anything, your money is safe. It's with them. So for us, it works in the same way as well. Because once we get regulated, obviously there's certain capital adequacy requirements that need to come into place. Have enough capital to be able to foresee any issues. So in terms of if anything were to happen, once anybody pays money into it, the relationship is with us. So once they pay in, we're the one who's going to make sure that everybody within that same group pays, and then we just pay out. If there's any problems at all with anybody, we're the ones who actually deal with it.
Gotcha.
And make sure that everything's covered essentially.
All right, guys, we've done our 30 minutes, right? So it's basically open for DMs or to request to speak. Guys, I have a first question here from my very, very good friend Lamide. Lamide is essentially saying, this is just feedback to you guys, that it shouldn't only work on iPhones. And I know she's just saying it should be for everyone, not just for iPhones. So I don't know if you have an answer or just passing a comment across to you guys. Yeah.
Yeah, that's totally fine. I mean, we are a startup, so like I said,
but why only iPhones? Do you want to explain why only iPhones?
Yeah, I'm going to get to that. So usually in the tech world, most people do actually start on iPhone just because it's the more widely accepted platform. Again, once we expand, we do have plans obviously to go into Android, so it's not just going to be limited to iPhone. That's just our capacity at this moment in time. So Lamide, you can still register your interest by going on the website, and then once we actually have that, you'll be the first to know. So yes, we will be going to Android as well. We're not excluding Android. So
the beta is just set up on Apple for now, but she can go to the website and all. You guys get back to her. Okay, I hope she's happy because I don't want her to be unhappy. Yeah, Lamide, I've asked you a question.
We don't want that.
Exactly. So I have on that DM. So who is? Someone's asking how they can join. Like, is it only good because I put the UK in? Can you talk about this UK thing? How are you? Yeah, just go ahead and talk about the UK thing and all that.
Yeah, so as we said at the beginning, both John and I essentially grew up in the UK. I'm a member of the Child Institute for Securities and Investment. So the financial market in the UK is what I am accustomed to, and where I'm from essentially. So our company is registered in the UK, so that is where we will be starting. Essentially, we do have plans to scale, and we do have a lot of people in the US who have actually downloaded the app and showed interest. But of course, the US is quite a large market, so we want to just make sure we're covering the base first before we start trying to expand and go into different markets. We want to make sure that what we have works, which we have done at this point. But we will be starting with Fortrese within the UK first, but we have scope to expand.
And just to add as well, I think it's very important to know that the UK regulatory environment is one of the best out there. So in terms of to elevate your concerns, if as a fintech, if we're to get regulated in the UK, for us to get regulated and to be accepted as a fintech company or a financial services company, dealing with other people's money, there's a very stringent requirements that are required that we have to go through with the FCA to make sure that obviously we have the right people on board, the right procedures on deck, the right systems and processes, and to make sure that if anything were to happen, whoever is using Fortrese is definitely protected. So, and then because of that, there's obviously because it's such a very good regulatory environment, it's very easy once you set up in the UK to be able to move to any country within the EU and even in the US as well, which looks favorably upon financial services company which are from the UK, because it does have a very good tech and fintech background as well.
Great.
I don't know if that helps. Yeah.
Yeah, great. And let me just. So someone's asking for the website. The spelling for Fortrese is not like fortress. So just give us the website again, please. That's Toby is asking for the website. Yeah.
That's totally fine. So it is fortrese.com. If you click the link in my bio, there's a direct link there, and I've done a few tweets, which I can pin one right now, and you can just go straight to that. But we've got a different spelling than the usual Fortrese.
Yeah, and guys, I've done a tweet of the link there. If you send me a DM, I can send to you. But I've done a tweet of the link, so you can just use that link to go in. And Toby's also asking who can use it. I guess Toby is going to be really that's anyone can use, but maybe you want to clarify, John. He's saying who can use this, right? Is it anyone? If literally the KYC, I downloaded the app. The KYC asked me all those questions and all that. So once I pass the KYC and I can inflow funds from the UK, I'm good.
Yeah, but just to clarify that, so the position that we're in now, we will be continuing on the beta. But again, what we are really trying to do now is really expand the awareness of Fortrese, because again, we've been testing it for 18 months. We know it works.
Yeah.
So anyone who likes the sound of what we are building, we really want them to go on the website, register or download the app. The KYC you can do now, that is the full process, but on the website, that is a more stripped down version, just to get people's information so we can let them know when we're ready to go. But we really want to scale this out, but we cannot actually do it if we don't have the interest, right? Like I said, 18 months, 100% success rate. We've got the iPhone basic version of the app now, but And just to touch on that too, one of the products that we brought in, which is based off of the same main product, which is the savings platform, because of the current inflationary, economy globally, we actually wanted to help people make better financial decisions when it comes to savings. So with the commodities option, which is going to be free in the beta at the moment, it allows people to either select whether they want to receive cash for their payment or receive their payment in either silver bullion, gold bullion, or coins, or even white diamonds. Because obviously, as you know, Kalu, if you actually receiving commodities, you're actually going to be hedging your money essentially over the long term, rather than receiving cash, which in this current environment is depreciating very quickly. And again, if you actually checked silver price, just as a quick tidbit, when the pandemic kicked in March 2020, silver actually doubled in price from March 2020 to September 2020. Mm-hmm. But you didn't really hear many people talking about that. And when you think about bullion, very small, 20 grams, 50 grams, any customer at the moment with our program could receive a 370 grams of silver based on our beta price point at the moment. So you can have that choice whether to take the commodity or take the cash. But that is something that we introduced a couple months back, just to give people a secondary option, even in the beta program.
Okay, Lebal, stop me if I'm wrong, right? So what you're essentially saying is this, right? I can open this account, this Esusu account, and I can say I'm saving with, say, 10 people, and I save my money in pounds or in dollars. And by the 5th month, the US dollar has depreciated or inflation has attacked the US dollar. So I know that when I get my money by the 9th month, my money would have depreciated. You are saying I can select when I want to get paid, if I want currency or gold or silver.
Correct.
Okay, that is very interesting. So it's more or less a hedge against inflation. Even if I do this Esusu, I get that native hedge, and I can do it. If dollars are up, I take my dollars. If dollars are down, I take my bullion or my silver or my commodities. That's essentially what's going on.
Exactly, yeah. And again, we introduced that because we know that within our communities globally, strategies like that are not always like the go-to. And the challenge that we have really is that even in some people that we asked, some people are not in a full financial position to take the commodity over the cash. And some folks are essentially not financially literate enough to know the reason why the commodity would be the better choice in this current economic environment. That's the key thing here. Right now, as you know, it's high inflation. Yeah. So you would rather take the silver or the gold
and just sell it.
That's going to appreciate over time.
It's nothing complicated. You take the gold and you just sell it, but then you are getting your hedged. What you're putting at the beginning, you're getting at the end. Remember, there's no ROI per se, guys. So, guys, I have a question here. So this is Respect is asking, how long can someone save and what's the interest rate? So just to clarify, right, Respect, is Esusu the same Esusu we have? So I think you can go in and then you can save. He's going to answer how many people will be on that cycle. And there's no interest. You put Esusu, you put in your £100. If there are 10 people, you get £1,000. If there are 5 people, you get £500. What they've done is to say, if you are collecting last, you get higher than the folks that are collecting first. That's one thing they've done.
Not just last, but depending on where you are on the payment
on that scale.
So January and December, if you're going first, obviously pay a little bit of premium because you're receiving your money first, and it acts as a bit of like a loan. Yeah. If you're going last because you're taking more of the risk, you actually pay a lot less. So it's a bit like it is essentially, even if you look at it from a regulatory standpoint, how we're going to get regulatory is from like a peer-to-peer lending system. Yeah. But it works as a SUSU because it is essentially bringing groups of people together and they're borrowing and lending amongst each other. So it's So I don't know if that helps explain it a little bit better.
Yeah. So Respect, I don't know if you had that explanation, but that's essentially it's a SUSU. But this has some features like he has explained. If you put in the money the same way you do a SUSU in your office, you get your money, but in their own instance, they're able to give you a bit of a hedge. You can get your currency or you can get a commodity, and it depends on the amount of people in that circle. So the question to you, John and Randall, how many people can I select? Is it 10? Is it 5? Yeah, what's the...
Yeah, no, good question. So again, it works on a 12-month schedule. So
12, okay.
effectively, it's 12 people per group.
Oh.
And we wanted to simplify it to make it as straightforward as possible. Because again, in different Susus, partner hands, people do fortnightly, as I said before, weekly. And, sometimes it can get a bit messy because, as we know, when you actually look at the data, you can actually see some people are not actually in a financial position to afford that level of frequency. But by doing it on a monthly basis, it's pretty streamlined. And when you look at some of the testimonials on the website, some of our customers have said like, hey, I actually forgot I was actually due a payment. So it was actually a bonus. And when you think about it, if you were to save the same amount in, regular bank account, it's going to take you 12 months to get that full chunk of money. Now, that's why we've actually compensated people from July to December, because they're waiting toward the back end of the year. So as John said, they actually pay slightly less per month because they're on the back end of the cycle. And the people January to June effectively in the premium slot. So they're paying for the privilege of being paid first. And that's how we modeled it, which, has worked really well, to be honest. It has worked really well.
Good point. Let me give Nigerians expo on how we can do this. I know, you remember what I said, you have got to put the money in the UK. But let's say I have an auntie or whatever, or I can put the money in the UK, right? If I take Naira and I buy a convertible currency like the euro or let's say the pound, let's say take Naira and I buy the pound in January, and they've said it's a 12-month cycle. I know that the Naira in 12 months would have fallen by 16%. But what Fortrese is saying is that if I take Naira and buy pounds and I go into this Esusu scheme, in 12 months, I get my money back, but I can get it back in gold or pounds, which means I not only maintain the purchasing power of that Naira, I even get more. So there's no interest per se, but just because I'm getting the exact same thing I gave them, by not losing money, I've sort of hedged that Naira risk, more or less. I've avoided that inflation in Naira if I can put the money into this account in Great British pounds. And I also do not have to worry about the pound also losing in value to their inflation. This is what I'm hearing. This is why I like it. And just to make sure, guys, we're talking about the same thing. We're talking about empowerment, right? And we talked about how the Indians, the Caucasians, the Chinese seem to have non-banking ways of pooling together funds and using those funds to do business. Africans, not really a lot. So we have Esusu, but Esusu is in the old century. It's yesterday. We have to bring it into today's financial space. That's what we're trying to do here. We know it. If I tell you Esusu, we understand what it is, but we have to drag it into this century so that it's digital. You can see now it's hedged against inflation. It's convertible, right? And it's more or less taking away the risk of the third party who I'm doing Esusu with my friend. Then he says, oh, I lost my job, so I can't pay. We've eliminated all that with this app. That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to bring Esusu from the last century to this century, guys.
This century. Sorry, go ahead, Emma.
No, go for it.
No, I was just going to add as well. I've made this argument with Lamar before. Whenever we've been discussing Susu, I think, honestly, if you think about it, like even the financial services sector, a lot of these, maybe you might disagree with me on this, but a lot of these, like think about an investment fund, a mutual fund, a real estate fund. If you really break it down to its basics, what do? They collect money out from people, pull it in, like put it in a pool, and use it to invest. It's the same way you could make the argument and say this is essentially from a basic level, it's the same thing as like Susu, which is where bringing people together, collecting their money, and then obviously this time instead of investing it into something, or just paying it out to different people. But I think if you could make the argument and say this is the way that a lot of these firms end up they've kind of used the same system as a way of like developing the economies, being able to spread wealth, generate wealth.
Yeah, it's a pool. It's a pool of savings. Once you have a pool of long-term savings, that's the first start. That's the first place you want to start from, right? Because if you ask, Limal shared the data on the UK. In the US, I saw a data point that says, is it 65% of Americans cannot raise $400 in an emergency? Now, if you come to Nigeria, right, if there was an emergency and you are asked to raise, say, 100,000 naira, I haven't done the poll, but I'll be shocked how many Nigerians can raise 100,000 naira in a week. You know, once I posted the poverty numbers for Nigeria, how much do you have to be declared as poor in Nigeria? Many people were shocked about the number. It's very low.
Honestly, Kelly, there's an issue. There's an issue, not just in Nigeria, in a lot of other countries you go in Africa and Caribbean, and you can see it in a lot of the black communities in the US. And we actually had a discussion with like a non-profit firm based in the US. They were very, very interested in terms of our model, how we were doing, because for them, they were doing like research in terms of because the same Esusu models have been practiced in the US by the Latin from the people in the Latin American communities and the Haitian communities and a lot of like black communities in the US. And they were like, okay, how can we then build something to help kind of tackle some of these poverty issues that we've seen? So it's a problem which is quite widespread. And I think one thing that a lot of people have done is we've kind of gone back from ancient ways of doing things and tried to everybody's just throwing out for themselves. Like everybody's just looking out for themselves. Where if you look at what's happening in terms of the countries which are wealthy, they use that same system of pooling people's money together and then investing it and trying to generate wealth for other people. And our own families, when they first came to the UK, our own grandfathers, to be able to get into the property ladder, what did they do? Use the same system, borrow and lend amongst each other to be able to buy property, to be able to do this, to be able to do that. But somehow, within the last generation, we've forgotten about it completely. And what we're trying to do, we've now brought that into the 21st century, digitalize that same system, come up with a risk management algorithm to tackle many of the issues that people have in terms of trust, people not paying in time, being able to get their money's worth for it, and then offering something that can help to tackle some of the issues that we saw, that we've grown up in our communities. But it makes sense in every single way.
I agree. I completely agree. I mean, again, guys, there's no 2%, 3%. It's the same Esusu we're doing in Nigeria. In my office, we had 10 people. We used to put X amount of money. And when you get your money, it's the same money you get, but it comes in bulk. You can actually go do something. You can go buy land or buy a car or something. But that same money, if you have it in your wallet, just 100,000 naira, you might spend it. But this one, it forces you to spend because every month you are taking out that 100,000 naira every month. But by the 12 months, you get 1.2 million. So it's just the psychology of it, I think, and also the pool. You have this boom. So if I want to pay rent, right? If I want to pay rent, I can do this. I can simply say every month I will take out my rent money and put in the scheme. What have I done? I've ensured that in a year's time I have my full rent money. But I've also ensured that I don't lose money via inflation. Because by the 12th month, let's say the dollar or the pound or the naira has depreciated, I can say, guys, I want my money in commodities. I take the commodity and I simply sell it for the same fiat, the same cash, and I pay my rent and I even make a profit on it. So it does a lot of things at the same time that I enjoy. Respect is still asking me. So Respect is the same way you do an Esusu. If you put in £100 and you are in 10 people, then you're going to get £1,000, but you have to pay 100 every month. So generally you pay 100, February 100, you pay 100, but when it's your turn, you then collect the bulk in the pot. That's what Esusu is. So every month you put more into the pot. Then when it's your turn, you take the whole pot. So you take your £1,000. So it's like a way for you to save. It forces. That's why people do Esusu in Nigeria, because how else would you save, right? If it's in your account, something will happen, you spend it. But when you're giving it away, in this case, these folks are saying, give it to us, trust it to us, and we'll make sure we collect from every other person as well. So that way you're able to get your phone. That's all they're saying. Respect. I hope it's clear now. Yeah.
And just one thing as well. So, as you know, savings is kind of a vanilla product basically. But the challenge that we have with Black communities globally is that we've got to learn these financial basics first before we can start getting to investments and other financial vehicles, right? So we of course have more ideas other than just savings, and we've slowly started to introduce things like the commodities, different type of strategy. But we found that by maintaining a generational strategy that did work for, let's say, our grandparents' generation, migrating from Africa or the Caribbean, we have to really restore the things that have historically worked for us, right? There's no point just disregarding it and saying, hey, there's no trust, I don't want to do it.
That is true.
It's something that has worked, so you just got to tweak it a little bit. Yeah. And again, even in this particular instance, I'll just be very transparent. If, for example, we don't get enough people that show an interest or want to actually use a system like this, then it just ticks along very slowly. It still could operate at a small scale level, but with technology, obviously, you have the ability to scale, and we know that we can reach people, whether it is on the continent, whether it is in the US, the Caribbean, the UK, Canada. We know we can do it because for the past 18 months, before we even had a space like this, right, we actually just wanted to be in the lab, make sure it worked first. And now, people who've been using it, some of them have been paid twice. They factor it into their future income, right? So their cash flows are more predictable then, because they're like, okay, in November, I know I'm getting $500 or $1,000. So I can then start to plan around that. And that's the beautiful thing that we create here.
Yeah. Great. I love it. I mean, we look at everyone and we think it's all sophisticated, right? Even in America, even in the Caucasian quote unquote space, this also happens. If you go to the deep south, the farmers, they have their credit unions. If you go to Utah, the Mormons have their own way of pulling together funds, going to fix a barn together. They do this collective scheme. This idea of should we say the formal financial economy. It's a new creation. Brand new creation. From the beginning of time till maybe the 1950s, everyone still goes back and does this collective work, pulling together funds or labor or time to achieve more for each other. The richest demographic in America, American Indians, they do this. Taiwanese Indians, they do this. South Koreans, they do it. Taiwanese, they do it. It's just we are not doing it. And I like what you guys doing, like Limal and John. Like I said, it's a BIPOC thing. It's not just the money part of it, but it's to create a pool. I think the long-term future, maybe you guys can maybe share a bit on that. The long-term future is this. If we can get more people to use this app, right, then we can then scale this even bigger and offer more services. And then we start to have this longer pool. For now, it's not a bank, it's not an investment, it's just Esusu. We're calling it that name. You might have a different name for it. But the long-term plan is to get more users. There's no risk to it, technically. It's your money you put in and you get your money in bulk, but we've taken away the risk of someone saying, hey, I'm not going to participate after I've taken. So what's the long-term, if you could give us that long-term plan, and then we could sort of start to,
Yeah, sure. I mean, again, just on the tail end of what you just said, we first looked at the risk management side first because we knew that was where the problem was. After speaking to people, we knew that people had trust issues. Sometimes people didn't pay and then they had to chase, and people were left holding the bag essentially. Yeah. So we wanted to fix those problems first. And as I said, the savings is a basic part of it. But once we actually control proof of concept at scale, maybe 1,000 people, 2,000 people, we know it's a financial model, so we know it's scalable. So of course we want to offer things like advisory services, which we have plans for that. We want to also offer basic banking facilities. There's many fintechs now that are the best banks. People like Monzo, people like Starling, because they put the customer first. And we obviously, as Africans, essentially, we know what our people need. And the problems which you'll find, whether it is in the Africa, Caribbean, UK, as I said, US, it's all the same problem, right? It's the same challenges that everybody's facing. So when you start to look at that, you know, okay, this roadmap towards financially literate people is going to lead to better economic outcomes for a lot of people. So we just really want to push the financial literacy, ease of use. You know, even in the app, is customer service. You can chat with us. You can ask questions, email. You know, we've got all of those things to just try and make it easy. So we want a very seamless product, service, should I say, and something that allows people to get ahead financially.
Interesting. Good job, guys. All right, so we've got about 5 minutes to go. I think I've answered those questions. Yeah. So most people are just asking just the methodology to go ahead and do this. So like I said, I've shared the app. There's a website set up. It's just really want to get out there so you guys can then ask more questions. You can try to use it. Like synchronize an iPhone or the website, and then we'll also contact you once more can use it. Talk to me. If you want more questions, send me a DM. I'll send to Limawa and John and all that. If you, whatever you ask, just send to me and I'll get that across to you guys. So John, I mean, while in the closing period time, if you guys want to essentially close it out for us, would appreciate that.
Okay, John, you want to go first? I'll wrap after.
Yeah, sure. I think obviously you have a lot of listeners. I think a lot of the audience, they are well aware in terms of who you are and the fact that you have a huge interest in terms of the Black community at large and some of the financial challenges that are facing the system. We understand that obviously, we're not Susu at basic is something that all of them are familiar with. It's been used. I'm quite sure some of them are even in Susu groups at the moment. What we've done, you could even say we've kind of modernized it, brought it into a digital age, put it on an app, and we're going to get regulated to alleviate some of the many risk concerns that people might have about trust, getting paid in time, so which means obviously there's going to be capital adequacy requirements, we're going to get monitored by the regulators. We're going to have systems and processes in place as well to make sure that obviously whoever joins is going to be up to par and there's not going to be no issues. So I think it's a lot of the issues that you talk about, these are some of the stuff that we are obviously trying to deal with and solve. I think this is one way of doing it. So I think it makes sense that we use something that is tried and tested, has been used in many communities, and has been used by our grandfathers to then help solve some of the issues that we see in today's age.
Yeah, well said. So, yeah. Well said.
Yeah, and I guess final take from me. I mean, both John and myself are very passionate about these things. Again, both having similar and different backgrounds as well, but we also know what the problems are for our community. Now, as I mentioned, the book that I've written, which is also available to listen for free, I've just posted a link for the audiobook on YouTube. And again, me even doing that is to try and meet people where they're at. I understand sometimes people might not read physical books or they might listen to audio. But what I believe is that if we can tap into the information at whatever level people need it at, then we can actually progress forward. Because if we're not actually trying to move the needle and better ourselves, from an educational standpoint, then these problems are going to just sit here for a long time. And, my grandmother, she was someone who benefited from things like Partner Hand when she migrated from the Caribbean to the UK. And if we don't really restore that level of trust, as Dr. Claude Anderson says, we're never going to really achieve anything, right? And it really stems from trusting one another, resolving some of these challenges that we've got from a psychological standpoint, an economic standpoint, and then actually execute with the information that's available. And I know yourself, Kalu, with your recent publication, it's doing and solving that purpose, hence why we wanted to work together, because if you've got the information at hand, then you can use it and execute and thrive and prosper. And that's really what we want. We want to elevate Black community globally and not just, be in last place, which, in all honesty, is where we're at. So we can do it, but we just really got to buckle down and work with one another. That's what I would say.
Excellent.
So all the links, if you want to get to Fortrese, you click my link in the bio. I put some of the information that we talked about today in the most recent tweets, and then reach out. You said Galu's there, myself's there, John's there. We're very available and accessible. So thank you for having us on the platform. Appreciate it.
Yeah, my pleasure, guys. My pleasure, guys. And just to round up the whole room, we're talking with Fortrese, talking about their app or their solution to empower. I mean, the overall goal is to empower the BIPOC, Black immigrant population of color folks. We want to create something that is, that is simple. And the way we want to start is to say, let's start to save. Before we even talk about investment, let's just save. Let's just learn that habit of putting money aside. And Esusu does that. We know it, we've used it, it works for us. Put money aside that you can later go back to it and then use it when you get it in bulk. And that's essentially what these guys are doing, right? They're just making it a bit modern. It's convertible. They've done some risk management there. They've done KYC there, but it's the same basic Esusu that we know. So it's just the starting point, So you want to save for rent, you want to save for a wedding, you want to save for emergency. This is basically the way we have done it in the past. And I think it's just excellent that they've taken time to work on it. So guys, thanks for everyone that has listened. Like I said, I'm here. If you have more questions, send me a DM or talk to me and I can basically put you through. Thanks, John. Thanks, Limal, for coming in. For all the folks that were in the space today again, thank you so much. We're back on Saturday again, as usual. I think Saturday we're going to talk about what's happening in the markets, right? The markets are going crazy. What's happening and what should we do about it? So get strapped for Saturday. That's all I'll say. All right, guys, thank you so much. We're going to shut down the space. And yeah, thanks you guys for coming along. Have a great one.
Thank you, Galu. Appreciate it.
Yeah, you're very welcome anytime. All right, take care, guys. Stay safe and take care of yourselves. Bye now. 5,
All right. Good evening.
4,
Bye.
3, 2.